Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this Photoshop effects project, we're going to make this kind of a strange, scary looking sci-fi image. Now this uses just some public domain pictures that I found on the internet, and I have the links for these in the materials description, so you can find those there if you want to download the images to use them yourself to repeat this effect. And then we do a lot of stuff to this to create this kind of strange image. It's actually not that difficult, just some basic steps. Let's just take a quick look through over here on the steps and we'll look at our original images. First off, we have a background image right on there. I'm going to show that. There it is, just a background sky image, nothing much about that. We have a image here of a city skyline. We're going to be taking that skyline image, cutting out the sky and the water of that image, and then distorting the image to give it more of this swoopy feel in there. So a little bit of image distortion on that. We can bring the other image back in again for even more effect. As you can see, that really adds to that effect. Now when we're doing this, we're also going to be using some blending modes. This one, for instance, uses an overlay blending mode to blend that water into our background, which gives us those kind of strange spacey sky effects. Now in the girl image, we're going to be taking a standard girl. Actually, this is the picture right here, cute little girl. And we're going to be taking that and doing a selection, doing a nice careful selection around the girl, and then doing a mask of that selection. So have a nice clean selection in there. We're going to be doing a blending mode here, a color dodge blending mode between those two, which will give us that kind of a high contrast look. And of course some outer glow effect in there as well. Then we have those eyes. There's one of them right there. And that's just a little bit painted right onto the layer, and then some effects added on that for that. And then the little highlights right there are up here, just little highlights. And then finally a little color shift at the end, just for a little more of a tweak to the whole image. So pretty straightforward actually on doing this image. But it will take us a little while to get through this. On cutting out that background skyline, that's going to be our first job. I'll show you part of that, and then I'll pause the video and I'll finish cutting that skyline out, so you don't have to sit here and watch me spend an hour cutting out a skyline, and then I'll bring the video back up again. Okay, so look at our original pictures. We have this one, and again this is just a public domain shot I found online, and we have our skyline in here. We'll be using the image and in two ways. One, the skyline as it is, and we'll clean out that little bit down there, a little bit of photo work to get rid of that. And then we'll also come in and cut out the image and use that as an overlay with a distortion to give us that kind of swooping building effect. And then finally the girl down here. Okay, so there we go. And we'll start off with this as our main image in here. Let's just go ahead and do a file, save as, and I'll save this as a Photoshop file. There's all of our other samples in there. So there's a Photoshop file. There we go. So we'll use this one as our basic file. That's our background, so let's double click on that and convert it to a regular layer. So the first thing I want to do is to just fix this one piece, and we'll do that just by cleaning up that little fence or whatever that is at the bottom that I don't really want to have in the way. So this is just a real fast clone stamp on this. It doesn't need to be very accurate. It's going to be pretty well hidden by everything else. So clone stamp tool, hold the Alt key down, click, and then come down and let's just paint that out. Again, nothing too dramatic in here on this. It'll look just fine. Just want to kind of get rid of that fence effect in there, which doesn't really do us any good. And just a little bit in here of something else. Just to kind of smooth things out a bit. There we go. That works. So a little bit of a weird shadow right there. Again, doesn't really matter, but just to keep things real nice and clean, I'm going to cover that out as well. And that's good enough. Okay, so that cleans our background up. Let's fit on screen again. Looks good. We need a copy of this, so I'll take this and drag this down to the new layer button, make a copy of that. On the copy, that's one that I'm going to be going in and carefully cutting out the sky and cutting out the water down below. And that'll take some time to do that, so I'll do most of that off camera. We also need our new background. That's our Arctic picture here. Let me just drag that down and float that picture. I can then grab this, pull it over here, and get rid of that. Let's now get this to fit. Pull it up in the corner there, edit, transform scale, grab that bottom corner, just snap that into position. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of distortion on that. We're just going for the clouds on this one anyway. There we are, pull it into the background. So there's our background. Now when we come in and we blend this to that, blend these two together, that's going to give us a kind of a strange cloudy effect that you can see right in there. And again, that is blending those two layers together, just doing an overlay onto our background image. Okay, let's go ahead and do that part of it. So there's the image, there's our background, blending mode, overlay, and that gives us those strange clouds. You know, a bit of our skyline showing, that's just fine. It adds a secondary level in there for us. So that takes care of that background bit. Now, probably the hardest part of the whole thing is coming in here and cutting out this background and cutting out the water down below. The water below, that's a cinch. I'm just going to grab my lasso tool here, and I'm just going to do kind of a freehand thing along the bottom. Come outside and just pull along the outside of the picture. Come back to my beginning spot. There it is. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Hit the delete key, and that's been cleaned out, and that's just fine. Let's go ahead and deselect that. So that's good. That was easy. Now we need to do the top part, and this is where it's a bit more difficult because there's a lot of stuff in here, as you can see. I have a lot of these little angles and things in here. There's glows happening. Ignore the glows. We're going to look just for the angles or the parts of the buildings and just go around all of the buildings as carefully as we can. You know, all down here and all that kind of stuff. Just go clear across the whole skyline, and we're going to cut out the sky, leaving just the buildings. We do just a little bit of this and see what my approach is going to be, and then I'll put the video on pause while I finish the rest of that. So in this case, I'm going to be using the polygonal lasso tool. Start outside here, and also begin following along the edges of these buildings. And I'll take my time to do a nice selection on this. I'm not going to rush this part of the job. This is the part that really counts to do this as a good job, so it's worth taking the time to be careful about this. And as you can see, it's just going to be a matter of going in and carefully creating this selection and following along the edges. Now I can't use other tools really on this because I have hard edges, so I can't try to freehand this with the eraser tool, although I can do some eraser tools when I'm cleaning out the sky. So the polygonal lasso tool gives me these straight lines, which allows me to follow along on these shapes fairly nicely. On things like this, a little more difficult. You may want to save some of this, maybe freehand a little bit of this stuff. But for most of this, I'm going to be sticking with that polygonal lasso tool as I'm doing right now, just to be able to easily get those straight shapes. Now I can't use the background eraser tool because some of these areas are just too close in contrast and value. They're not going to be picked up by that background eraser. Same thing with the different magic wand tools. Quick select tool. You can use that for some, but it's not going to give you the best effect. It really is worth just taking the time and doing a careful selection. I'm going to go ahead and finish this one building here, and then we'll take out some of that sky, and we'll see where we're at, and then I will pause the video and finish the rest of the skyline off camera. Notice as you pull outside of the picture here, the picture will automatically scroll, so that makes it a little bit easier. Okay, I'm just going to finish up this edge. Now, of course, we won't be paying real attention to the building, so if you are a little bit off on one of your buildings, it's not going to matter. No one's going to notice that, but try to do the best job you can. Okay, I'm going to take it right to here, and let's just come up a bit, click right there, come over, let it scroll automatically to the edge, click outside, scroll down, find our beginning point. Just like that, make that selection, hit the delete key, and we just erase that part of it. Okay, let's deselect, and I'll zoom out a bit here. So you can see, there we go. It's just a matter of going through and cutting out that sky. Now the stuff up here, you can just use the eraser tool or big chunk selections or whatever to do that. The important part is coming in, taking your time to do a nice selection around the tops of all of these buildings, just like we did there. When we then bring in the background, see right here, it looks real nice. Actually works out very, very well in there. It really fits well. Of course, we have one more step we'll be doing, and that's that we're going to be distorting this background. After we have done this, we're going to take that background and actually warp the background like that for that strange kind of warpy effect. Okay, so at this point I'm going to pause the video, and then I'll finish going in and using the polygonal lasso tool. I'll finish cleaning out the skyline around these buildings. So you clean the bottom out, clean the top out, or about a quarter of the way through there, clean the top out, and once that's done, I'll bring the video back up and we'll do that distortion effect, that warping effect. Okay, there we go. Skyline has been cut out. We have removed the water and the sky above, and we'll be blending this in with all of that. But let's now distort this thing. So go up here to Edit and Transform. You can pick any transform you want. It doesn't matter. Once you're on that transform, I just did Scale. Go over here, this little button right there, and that brings up this warp effect. And this allows you to grab these handles and actually warp the image with these handles, just like that. I'm going to pull the bottom down as well. Going to give us quite a bit of warp in here. And you can use these handles for even more warping if you want. And let's just zoom out a bit and do even more warping on the sides. The amount of warping is up to you. It doesn't really matter. Just have some nice Nice strangeness in here. Notice you can do all kinds of neat, fun stuff with this. But I'll try to keep things fairly vertically aligned. There we go. I don't want to have too much bending happening left or right. I want it mostly just up and down distortion. So there we go. There's our distortion effect. Choose the OK button, and it does that effect. We can then bring our backgrounds back in again, and there's that nice little distortion happening. Okay, so far we're at to this point. Now we want to soften up the bottom, as you can see in there. I put a bit more distortion on the new one, which I just felt like it. So let's come in and soften the bottom edge up in here, and we'll do that with an eraser tool. I'm first going to make a copy of this layer. Let's just copy that layer and save that just in case. Okay, let's take this layer, and we're going to be taking the eraser, and I want a fairly good sized soft eraser that is 0 hardness. The size is going to depend upon the size of the picture that you're working with. That looks about right for this picture. And I'm just going to just erase back up into that edge. Just kind of like that. And that just softens up that bottom edge for me. So there we go. There is the skyline. Has now been taken care of, as we can see on our original. There we go. The skyline's taken care of. The next thing we need to do now is to work with the girl in the image. So I'll save our file at that point. Let's go over here to the girl's image. We'll pull this down here. Just float that image. Pull the girl over. And we're going to resize this until she's about that big in the picture. You can see it over here, pretty good sized, centered on the picture. Edit, transform, scale. Now when you do this scale, hold the shift key down so that you keep everything in proper proportions. I don't want to go clear to the top. I want to have a bit of space up there, so that's pretty good in there. About 1/3 of the picture, so her head's about 1/3 of the picture, I think is about right. Now I'm going to try to center the eyes about in the center of the picture. So if I pull this over, so our picture's at 70 up there, so 35. That's about the center of the picture. So I'll put her right about like that. Okay, let's go ahead and set that in. Click on that checkbox. There we are. And we can clear that guide out of the way. So we have our image. We now need to come in and cut her out of this background and do some tricky little stuff. There's a lot of wispy hair in here, so we're going to have to come in and refine edge on that hair to clean that hair out. I'm going to hide the background, so let's just get rid of that background so it's not going to be disturbing us. And let's zoom in, and we'll do a careful selection along here, and then I'll come outside of the hair a bit, kind of like that, and then a careful selection on this edge. Something here, careful on that edge, come outside of the hair a bit over here, kind of like that, and then careful up here. I'm not going to care about this wispy stuff at the top. Now on this selection also, keep in mind that we're going on kind of a sci-fi look, so if things aren't actually perfect in here, it's not going to matter. There's a lot of flexibility because people are going to be looking at the overall effect and not at little individual bits. So because we're going for kind of a dramatic sci-fi effect, it's going to make the job a little bit easier for us. That always helps, of course. Okay, we're out into the hair area. I'm going to come outside the hair, just like that, and then we'll come back in again and do a careful selection. I'm using the polygonal lasso tool for this, where you click and it sets a point, and then you can drag down to your next position and click and it sets that point. It's a very easily controlled tool for making selections. Just scroll over here, click outside someplace, and then find my next spot. And we're going to be deleting that background out of there. We may soften things up a little bit. We'll see how this comes out. And again, somewhere outside of the hair here. We're not going to be getting all the hair. You know, we can't get everything. You can't do a perfect mask on hair no matter what people say. But you can get pretty darn close if you're careful. And I have a couple little tricks to make it look a little bit better. Okay, where's our beginning? There we go. So there's the selection. And let's zoom out a bit. Let's now go up here to the Select menu and Refine Edge. Brings up the Refine Edge dialog box. Now, there are two ways to do this. One is the edge detection. You can go ahead and let Photoshop try to figure out where the edge is on this. And you kind of see it softening down the edge in there a little bit. I've never found it to be that successful. Other way is to come in with a paintbrush, and you can adjust the size right here to the stutter control. If you had a good size brush on that, see there's my size, and then brush over that edge. And as you do that, Photoshop is going to try to look at that edge and find where those edges should be. It's then going to soften things down and give you some transparency effect over that edge. You can see it actually does a very good job. So that's looking pretty good. We'll get the top up there, do a little bit right there. And let's come over here and do the right side of the hair. And just paint in and let it try to find those edges. Now I missed right down there just a little bit. Let me just undo that one. And I'll do it right to here. Okay, so far so good. We can now try to increase the contrast on this and see if that improves anything or not. Not really. Maybe right in here needs a little bit of something. Let's now switch over to on black and see how we're doing. That's just black and white. And we'll see if we can clean it up a little bit. Probably about as good as we'll get. So I'm going to come in now and we'll do some erasing on this as well. Let's put that back to the marching ants. Choose OK. There's our refined edge. Now we can come in and do a layer mask in here. So let's do our layer mask. There's a layer mask. Notice how it gave us the invert on that. So I'm going to invert the layer mask. Make sure you're on the layer mask. Look for that outline around there. And then Image, Adjustments, Invert. Just reverses that. There we go. Now on the layer mask, we can paint back in here. Notice that white shows and black hides. So if I paint in here with black, I can come in and adjust that edge a little bit. So grab the paintbrush tool. There's our size. It's set at a pretty soft brush. That looks okay. We have black. We're on the mask. And I'm just going to come in here and just do a little bit of that just to soften that edge up just a bit. Don't want to do too much. Okay, let's now see how that looks against our background. Looks pretty good. Again, because we have this dramatic background, we have a little bit of coloration showing through there. It doesn't really matter because you don't really see that. So far so good. Let's fit on screen, and I think we're getting somewhere. Let's go back to our original. There we are. So we have our basic step. We're up to this point right here, Now I left in some background image on that. We can go back in and actually cut that out if you want to. So you can use the layer mask and create a selection in here and then trim out that background. It's not necessary. You don't have to do that. It's just one possible effect. Let's now take a look at our glow. So let's come down here to the effects or go up here to layer. Either one is fine. We're doing a layer style and outer glow. Bring that up so you can see the outer glow is happening in there now. And we can adjust the size of that. You don't want to go very far. You can adjust the spread. Kind of jumping pretty fast on that. You just adjust that with our range a little bit here. So I'm just trying to get some glow happening in there around that figure, just for kind of a weird spacey effect. They can do different contours on this. All kinds of strange little things happening in here. But we'll stick with the default setting. Okay, a little bit of glow to start off with. Let's now make a copy of this layer. Put down our new layer button. There's a copy. And we're going to come in and get this kind of a bright highlight effect happening in here. That bright glow happening. We're doing that with a color dodge on that layer, dodging that onto the layer below. So actually blending the layer back onto itself by using a blending mode up here. So color dodge. It just blends it back onto itself, as you can see in there. So there we go. So that's that far. Now we have the eyes. You can do a lot more, of course, if you want to. You can come in here and you can do even more fancy stuff on that to tweak it around a bit. But we're getting pretty good, pretty close. Notice how this gives us this kind of glowing effect on the outfit here. We get a high contrast look on the image up there. Let's now take a look at the eyes and do that eye effect. And that's just putting some blue right on top. So I'm going to make a new layer. There we go. We can do these separately so we can have some control on that. And we want just kind of a light blue color. So let's click on our foreground color. Let's come into the blues and find kind of a light blue. And then I want to have a paintbrush that's the same size as the eye. So it'll take a little bit of tweaking to get just that right size on this. There we go. And I'll just hit that a couple of times. Now I'm doing 2 layers on this so that I can move them around a little bit if I need to. If I had it on one layer, I couldn't then move the eyes independently. Like, that's just a little too high. But I can bring it down a bit with the arrow keys and reposition that eye. So you can see by having them on separate layers, I can reposition them to get them exactly where I want them. So that gives us our strange spacey eyes, but there's still more to that. See here we have brought them down a bit, and that's because we are using a blending mode again, hard light blending mode, and we're giving them inner shadow and outer glow. So there's more effects in here on these things. And if you like that, that's fine. You can leave it at that. But let's just take these further. So do a hard light effect. There we go. And we'll copy our effects and our layer styles in a second. There's the hard glow. It gives us a more solid, more brighter color. Let's now do our layer styles here. Layer style. And we want an inner shadow and an outer glow. So here's the inner shadow. We're on the bottom one right now, as you can see there. And if I control this, you can see that effect right there on the left hand side. So a little bit of inner shadow Yeah, that choke's going too fast. It's just a bit, it helps give it a roundness to the effect. So there's that, and then an outer glow brings back that kind of strange spacey look. And again, you can adjust the amount of outer glow on this. Take it just the right look, somewhere in there. That looks pretty good. It's a little different from my last one, but I kind of like this better. Now I can copy these effects. Just right click on the layer and copy layer style. Go up here, right click, and paste layer style. There we are. Now the last thing I want to have is some highlights in. You can see those right there. These are a lot darker. These are much darker colors, you can see there. Kind of like this brighter color a bit though. But if you want to, you can bring the opacity down on that to bring back more of the eye. It's a 62%. I'll just copy that. Right click copy. Come down here and then right click paste to match those. A little darker. Let's now bring our highlight back in again. So zoom in a touch. And let's switch over here to a white. And I want a new layer. There we go. Go right, paintbrush. We need a little small brush for this. So let's find the right brush size. Looks like that's about right. There we go. Okay, and find a nice spot for your highlight, which would be right about in here. Just a couple of shots. Puts the reflections back into the eyes again. And there we go. There is that kind of strange sci-fi spacey girl with that strange city background in there. As you saw, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just going through the proper steps to get the right effect. You can, of course, tweak this a lot further if you want to. For instance, I could make this even stranger looking in here by doing another layer. So let's take a look at some variations now that we have this. So there's the basic look. That's the basic kind of Space Girl effect here. It's the hard lighting effect. And the hard lighting, of course, comes just from that color dodge. So you're using the same image on itself and then color dodging that image. There it is, normal, and there it is with that color dodge. That gives you that real hard lighting effect. Now if we take this and make another copy of this layer, this one also has color dodge, so we're now dodging that twice. So you can see you can really push that effect if you want to, really go dramatic. You can go as dramatic as you want. Almost like that better, I don't know. Kind of a different approach, but you can go real dramatic if you want to on that one. Or you can use different effects. There's normal. Again, it's on top, so it's not blending with anything underneath. We see some of that blending in behind though, but nothing else. Now if I come in here and I'm going to use my mouse wheel and just roll down. There's multiply, color burn, linear burn, darker color, lighten, screen. There's the color dodge, that really dramatic color. Linear dodge. So you can see there's lots of effects in here using these blending modes if you're blending one layer into another. And what makes this interesting is that you're blending the same picture onto itself. That's where you get these really kind of strange sci-fi effects. Just blending onto itself. There's just luminosity. There's just color blending in. There's just the hue. All kinds of weird things. Subtract. And again, at this point we're doing 2 on top of our original. So kind of blending clear through on that, making some very strange effects. Some obviously don't work. Some work very well. It really depends upon the effect that you're trying for. Soft light's not too bad. It actually is. It's real bright here. A bit more of a spacey look there. And we're getting that exaggerated effect now because, again, I have these 3 layers. So there it is with just the color dodge. and there is a second copy with a soft light on top of that color dodge. I think that's even better. I think that makes even a more dramatic appearance. So there we go. That is how to do this hard light effect. And again, it really comes down to all this background stuff. This was just added stuff in here to make an interesting picture. The actual effect really is right there on those layers and using those blending modes. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.